matter. Attention, citizens of matter. Attention, citizens of matter. Attention, citizens of matter. Attention. Citizens of matter. Attention. I have come from the 17th dimension to here to tell you I broke the dissension and that my orders can never be questioned. Citizens of matter, I must have your attention. Citizens of matter, I must have your attention. You've gotten away with it for so long. My time will only make me strong. Now I must sing to the gathered throng. You pronounce the name of your town wrong. Citizens of matter, attention. Citizens of matter, attention. Citizens of matter, attention. Citizens of matter, attention.
Our top story tonight. When we last left our meddlesome president, he had vowed that nothing, repeat nothing, could make him take U.S. Marines out of Lebanon, the garden spot of the Levant, the place that gave us beloved celebrities, such as most disgusting song in the world, You're Having My Baby singer Paul Anka, long-distance dedicator Casey Kasem, transgressive comedian Jamie Farr, coffee table connoisseur Danny Thomas, and go-go girl Jane Weedlin. Funny, she doesn't look... Anyway, last week we were looking at yet another undeclared military engagement with no end in sight. A fearless leader determined to wage the war he somehow didn't quite have the eye nerves to fight back during the big one. Well, what a difference a day makes. After his entire cabinet resigned, Lebanese Prime Minister Amin Gemayel found himself going from Dutch's treat right into Dutch's oven, as the great communicator said, adios muchacho, and pulled out the Marines faster than Milton Berle pulled out his schlong, if anyone even mentioned it. Only this time, it was our European allies who were left hanging around awkwardly until they too beat the feet. Meanwhile, anxious American citizens are queuing up to take the last plane to Barksdale Air Force Base. And I'm sorry, but Lebanon has been in a state of civil war for 10 years, and you are an American in a place where being an American automatically makes you the most hated person in sight. And unlike in France, they will take you hostage if you are lucky. I'd rather be in Lebanon, Illinois, than Lebanon, the Levant. And Lebanon, Illinois is a shithole. But don't worry, Lebbies, we're not quitting. We're just transferring to another division. Probably to a more southern climate. Ugh. It appears that sport analyst Bob Oates has recovered from the unfortunate accident in which every bone in his hand was broken after betting it all on the Washington racial slurs 2 weeks ago, and managed to peck out enough words to earn his paycheck, though no doubt the money is already spent. with this rather long essay in which he startlingly concludes that a contest with a final outcome of 38-9 was in fact won by the defense. I'm certainly no football expert, but I did some research of my own and found this alternate theory. By the way, I know it's fake, but I'd still like to see that Raquel Welch picture. Unfortunately, I'm a little short. Does anyone have $198? Skiing in whiteface? Isn't that kind of redundant? Reader DL from the Springfield Misery writes to Walter Scott with a very, very, very specific question. Would you please list a few of the well-known actresses, including the Australians, who are recognized in show business as bisexual? Mr. Scott refuses, but I have a feeling it may be related to this article. And suddenly I too am now very intrigued by Australians. Once again, I must inform the citizenry of the deceptive advertising practices of famous bar department stores. Neither of these two women is named Olga, nor will they throw in a free Olga if you buy two of them. I suppose their lack of moustaches should have tipped me off, but hope springs eternal. Uptown girl Christy Lee has been making easy money for the longest time, but if she thinks careless talk won't leave her tender moments alone, she should keep the faith that a not-so-innocent man thinks she's right on time. But instead of telling her about it, I'll cry instead. Eponymous actor Tony Danza, lately of Taxi, but definitely not this guy from Marilyn Chambers' Insatiable, got kind of boisterous with a friend in a New York cafe, enough so that the manager sent a guard over to calm them down. An altercation ensued, and Danza and his friend were both injured. Well, I guess you could say he got shown who's the boss. Damn it, that hasn't started yet. Who forgot to fill the clepsydra again? Maybe you just haven't met the right wiener, Elaine. Imagine being her husband and seeing this article. I see a future headline. Local color writer beaten to death with Sunday edition. The New York Times is offering tips to help prevent yawns and hiccups, and the top of the list is oh, excuse me. I don't know what's come over me. Let's just do the next one. Renowned cancer researcher Henry Kaplan died last Saturday night. Of cancer. Well, you know what philosopher who could use more vowels Nietzsche said? If you gaze into the abyss gazes back. It turns out all the rumors are untrue, and Soviet Premier Yuri Andropov is on the road to recovery and is back in the office 2 days a week, expecting to resume full-time duties soon. So I guess that means everybody's going to have to go back to wearing business casual and appropriate shoes instead of slippers and onesies, and oh, who am I kidding, this is the Soviet Union, no one has 2 sets of clothing. Sometimes I just don't understand dear Abby's advice. Whatever happened to show, not tell? Speaking of telling and not showing, it's time for another segment of the show that shows you never can tell. officers in St. Louis spotted a van with its headlights off, leaving the parking lot of General Motor Freight Systems this morning, and attempted to pull it over, but the driver sped away, setting off a chain of incompetence and bad decisions. Within a few blocks, the scofflaws found themselves confounded by an icy patch, which caused their vehicle to spin out of control. As the officers tried to approach in their squad cars, the criminals did the only sensible thing they could: ram both cars and tried to make a break for it. Unfortunately for them, the police opened fire on the van, and they wisely surrendered. The two men are looking at charges including unlawful flight, theft, reckless endangerment, felony assault, attempted murder, and driving without the headlights on. The officers opened the van doors, and I'll bet you're wondering what on earth was worth this laundry list of charges. $525 worth of dishwashing liquid. The, stuff that dreams are made of, sweetheart. And if you think those guys were stupid, check out Nimrod Raymond S. Miller, 53, an age at which you should know better. A Chrysler executive who seemed to have problems covering the spread. On his lunch hour last week, Miller took a company car to a branch of the National Bank of Detroit in Dearborn and approached a teller in an attempted robbery. The teller immediately started crying and screaming because she recognized Miller, because he had robbed the bank before, and because he had robbed her before. Twice before. In the last 6 weeks. The third time was not the charm, and Miller was arrested and will likely be looking at a long, long stay in a small, small room. Until next time, that's all this then. G. Ross Henninger, the former president of the Ohio College of Applied Science, died last Friday after having won a court battle over the right to starve himself to death due to his deteriorating health conditions. And former acquaintances described Henninger as the strong type. I'll say, I can't go 5 minutes without eating something. Have you tried one of these new McDLTs? They're amazing. The hot side stays hot, and the cold side stays cold, but they're both in the same container. How do it know? The blood from Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson smeared all over his shirt isn't even dry yet, and already he's cozying up to Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam leader who the assassination of Malcolm X. I guess this is his way of quelling the nervous fears of all the middle-class white people he will need in order to secure the Democratic Party's nomination this summer. It seems impossible, but it looks like I was wrong about the world's easiest headline. Apparently everyone and their Uncle Albert couldn't wait until the actual 20th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper, instead choosing to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the only important event in Beatles history, namely their first appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show in 1964. And how did they commemorate the 20th anniversary of this important event? By using the same quote from a song which would not even be recorded for another 3 years, and then thinking they were clever for doing so. Well, I saw the news today and thought, oh boy. You see, two can play that game. You know, if you're going to use all those words to write an article about the Beatles, the least you could do is put in something that I didn't already know. Like this. Talk about your octopus's garden. Well, suddenly this makes a lot more sense now. Look at her. She can barely make it down the stairs. report from the National Institute on Drug Abuse has revealed that marijuana use has dropped for the fifth consecutive year amongst American high school students, and boy howdy did I not need an expensive government study to tell me that. I've got so much Northern Lights in the trailer on the back of my parents' property, I don't know what to do with it. What is up with all these latchkey kids just saying no? Their parents invented smoking, for God's sakes. So, it's his fault. I'm going to have to get a larger notebook. Marge Proops, OBE, and no, that isn't a joke, has returned, and I swear she must be a writer for the Mitchell brothers. In her first tale, a man goes to see a woman doctor, and you can guess the rest. In her second, a pretty teen has a special problem. Her mother won't stop coming on to her boyfriend. If you want to know how things turn out, you'll just have to push past those swinging saloon doors at the back of your local video store, the one that doesn't check IDs. Johnny Carson had a minor scare when, during the taping of his NBC show last week, a deranged man jumped from the audience and threw a brown paper bag at the host's feet. Nonplussed, Carson continued the show as police dragged the assailant out of the studio. Upon inspection, the paper bag was found to contain bits of torn paper with random words written on them. The man is expected to join Carson's writing staff as soon as the charges can be dropped. Movie star with his hand up his own ass, Kermit T. Frog, is said to be marrying his longtime co-star, Ms. Piggy, at the finale of their upcoming movie, The Muppets Wear Out Their Welcome. Ms. Piggy, who I was surprised to learn is Jewish, has requested that the ceremony be performed by Fozzie Bear, which I can totally see. I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of message this is supposed to be sending kids. It seems like a slippery slope to me. If you let a pig marry a frog, what's next? Gay people? It was Adam and Eve, not Madam and Breve, Sepsis. I had to work hard for that one, folks. Rula Lenska, best known as being the Rula Lenska of the phrase, "Who in the hell is Rula Lenska?" will be making an appearance on the upcoming Doctor Who serial, The Resurrection of the Daleks, which I am told will also be the last appearance of the delectable Janet Fielding, best known as being the face I see when I close my eyes in bed every night. Say it isn't so, Tegan. Once again, our townsmen are just crying out to be heard. Will no one listen to their pleas? Charles Stevens, the director of the Misery Bureau for the Blind, was fired on Monday. Apparently, he had been robbing them, one leg at a time. You know, I hear that in the country of the blind, the one-joke man is king. Okay, I'll stop now. If you're looking for a treat this Valentine's Day, but don't have a lot of time, here are some recipes for sugarless treats straight from the microwave. Nothing says, I think we should break up, but I want you to be the one to do it, more than giving your loved one microwaved sugarless cheesecake on Valentine's Day. National treasure and woman with the greatest mounds outside of Cahokia, Dolly Parton, has proven once again that we don't deserve her, this time by granting the wish of a dying blind and mute girl, flying her and her family and her private nurse to meet with Parton in Burbank. The singer of the definitive version of I Will Always Love You even tried to keep the visit private, but the generosity in her bosom could not be contained, leading to the news inevitably escaping, overflowing her attempts at restraint. We here at NF84 commend Miss Parton for her charity, and would just like to comment that as long as she is fulfilling dying wishes, we have yet more Dolly Parton news, because who can't resist a double dose of DP? It seems that surgery in 1982 left Miss Parton with scars on her abdomen, which she says she will cover up with a tattoo of a lace bodice, with bows, ribbons, and roses across her stomach, and I think I'm going to have a lie down now. Anyway, while it is her body and her choice, I just don't understand why she would bother covering scars that certainly she cannot see without looking into a mirror, and no one else could see because they are perpetually covered in shadow, like the dark side of the moon. By the way, I was just watching 9 to 5 on Betamax the other day, and I thought I'd share this picture of Miss Parton. Imagine coming home to find that sitting on your couch.
How was y'all's day, dear?
It's about to get much better, trust me. Speaking of fun and games that quickly ballooned out of control, it's time for another segment of the show that asks, have you checked on the children? January 28, 1984. 15-year-old Julie Green was babysitting with her boyfriend, 17-year-old Kenneth Rosa, in the quiet town of Crystal Lake, Illinois. It's 9:45 p.m. The telephone rang. On the other end of the line was a voice, breathing heavily. Julie hung the phone up. 3 more times it rang, and each time she answered, it was the same. Already on edge, the pair were terrified when at 10:30 p.m. a pounding began on the back door, followed by more pounding from the front. In a panic, Rosa directed Julie to stay in the hallway with the children, while he rushed to the front door. Opening the front door, he saw a figure crouching in the bushes. A man with a beard and mustaches, wearing jeans and a jean jacket, punk-style sunglasses, and a nylon stocking over his head. With a cry, the man leapt from the bushes towards Rosa, who reacted by unsheathing the knife he used to open boxes at the hardware store where he worked, and plunging it into the stomach of his assailant. The attacker fled into the street, fell, and got up, only to fall again. "Oh my God, Ken," the figure said, "you stabbed me." Rosa and Green recognized the voice and rushed to the fallen form, whom they now knew was Green's girlfriend, 14-year-old Karen Gasky. Gasky had originally been the one to take the babysitting job, but had recruited Green to cover for her so she could go to her party. But Gasky, an inveterate practical joker, had other ideas. She began prank-calling Green, then dressed herself up in men's clothing, showing off her costume to her older sister, before running across the street to bang on the windows of their neighbor's house. Gasky was rushed to the hospital, but was pronounced dead at 12:31 a.m. Rosa's knife had pierced her heart. Rosa was charged with manslaughter, but the case was dropped after eyewitness testimony.
This series is an intervention used to tolerate human information. The committee's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries we will examine.
ICFTD is running this special again this Valentine's Day. Fair warning, I thought the two special ways referred to the two different flowers, but apparently the second way to surprise the one you love is with a visit from Merlin Olsen himself. I found this out last year when I ordered Plan B for my mother, who called me up afterwards and berated me for not going with the flowers. At first, she was shocked and surprised to see Merlin Olsen at her door, but all she could do was to coax him to the edge of the bed, whereupon he sat down and put his face in his hands, crying about how he used to be Michael Landon's best friend, but then he got thrown over for that hideous Victor French. And then my father came home, and they spent the rest of the evening talking about football, while Mother fumed in the bedroom. I still hear about that. Dear Abby writes this week, urging caution while taking drugs. Well, I'm not going to read all that shit. I'm just going to give you my own advice. First of all, never drink. But if you do drink, never do anything else while you are drinking. Second, you can smoke pot before you get drunk, but if you smoke pot after you get drunk, make sure you're at home, preferably alone. Third, if you drop acid, you can do anything you want because your brain won't feel it, but your body will, so be careful on the stairs or getting in and out of cars. Speaking of getting in and out of cars, Herman Hogelbogle, if that is indeed his real name, has helpfully supplied the readers with a list of car seats still available since he is called Shotgun, including the driver's side rear seat, the passenger side rear seat, and the bitch seat in the middle. Additionally, there is a spot in the driver's seat, since Herman Hogelbogle does not have a car, nor does he have any friends willing to drive him anywhere. What a loser! I've been staring at this headline for an hour, and I can't figure out if this woman was kidnapped and raped, or if she was kidnapped and wrapped. From the fool me once, shame on you, fool me 7 times. I think I'm starting to like it, department. Comes the most unbelievable story since Errol Flynn said he never asked Peggy Satterley how old she was. That of a woman in Los Angeles who was suing the Roman Catholic Archdiocese for $15 million, alleging that she was seduced by 7 priests, eventually having a baby from one of them. Either this woman is the Baroness Munchausen, or she is Sherlock Holmes's smarter sister and was able to find 7 priests willing to have sex with a woman. The only believable thing about this story is that she is represented by Gloria Allred, which I could have told you just from reading the suing for $15 million part. 12-year-old David has finally emerged from the isolated bubble his parents had carefully constructed in an attempt to protect him from the real world. David, who has recently started referring to his parents by their first names, has refused to get his hair cut, and lately has been playing a loud metal tape called Kill Them All on his Walkman, refusing to take the headphones off when his father asks him to mow the lawn. Well, you know what they say, you can take the boy out of the bubble, but you can't take the bubble out of the boy. It appears as if there is one man who can make George Steinbrenner seem like a hero, and that man is Donald J. Trump, the owner of the New Jersey Generals USFL team, who, despite the fact that he is not the president of the New York State Sportsplex Corporation, began answering questions from the press as if he were. Steinbrenner stormed out of the press conference saying, "This isn't a one-man show." But after realizing that he had, in fact, just made it a one-man show, the man whose hobby is firing Billy Martin returned and stood in front of Trump, attempting to block Trump's face out of the picture. Look at the faces of everyone else. You can see that despite the fact that everyone hates George Steinbrenner, they hate Donald Trump even more. Imagine! And just look at Trump's face, if you can. It is an attempt to smile, which is something he has heard is a thing other humans do, but it cannot even contain the rage and humiliation he is feeling. In his mind, George Steinbrenner is being tortured by the shadow agents of the unnamed federal force he will create when he is finally in charge. I say we take both of these assholes and lock them in a room for 30 days and see which one comes out alive. And then sew him up in a bag full of rats and throw it into the Tiber. Pastors of the Institutional Baptist Church of Los Angeles subdued an armed man who came barreling in just like Satan in order to rob the place. I don't remember that part of the Bible, the one where Satan went all Jesse James. But anyway, the gunman is believed to have also robbed another church 3 blocks away of $1,300 on Monday, which in my book makes him Hero of the Week. Regarding the incident, Reverend John Sims said, "I wrestled his gun away and said, 'How dare you rob these church-going people? That's our job. I don't come to where you work and take the money from the bank tellers. Although I would like to.'" Tonight's show is brought to you by Sticks, Bear & Fuller's semi-annual Lincoln's birthday sale. Mrs. dresses for $29.99. Even better dresses for $49.99. And ladies' coats and skirts from $99.99. Sticks, Bear & Fuller. Now open in Waukesha. Now back to the show. Speaking of the slender man, just this past week alone, Michael Jackson, feeling no pain from his recent Mount Etna impression, took Webster star Emmanuel Lewis to the LA Zoo, paid a visit to tap dance kid Alfonso Ribeiro, and squired around a solo Sean Ono, sans Yoko. He's acting like a kid in a candy store. Is it just me? Am I the crazy one? Is it because they're not girls? Soviet Premier Yuri Andropov, the hide-and-seek champion of late 1983 and early 1984, has been found, pretty much where they left him a few months ago, after suffering a long illness, which was denied all the way up until the moment he stopped thrusting the mirror held up to his nostrils. Experts are divided as to who will succeed Andropov, and Soviet citizens are queuing up to buy commemorative portraits of the beloved figure. Good God, I hope they pick a better one than that. Though he had been urged by some to attend the funeral in a show of détente, President Reagan instead appointed Vice President Bush to represent the U.S. at the ceremony. In retaliation, Bush vowed revenge on the country, swearing he would do anything in his power to ensure that his idiot son George Jr., currently running an oil company into the ground, would someday get elected president. Exactly what killed Andropov has not been revealed, though... Well, that's too bad, because that is where I live. Here we see several Mount Vernon Middle School students dressed for Clash Day, in which every article of clothing is supposed to clash, resulting in a garish display of mismatched colors and styles. In other words, everyday 1980s fashion. Newly released Picasso perfume is in stores now and selling for $160 an ounce. That seems kind of pricey for something you dab behind your ears, even if they are on the same side of your head. But if dab is what you want, I've got a deal for you for something just as pungent, for only $100 per ounce, or $300 for a quarter pound. Interested parties should meet me at the trailer in the back of my parents' property an hour and a half after school gets out. Two London balloonists attempting to set a new world altitude record on Tuesday suffered a bit of a letdown, which is a British way of saying that 5 feet shy of the new mark, the balloon exploded, setting the men on fire, who then began plummeting, but because of the high altitude, burned to death before hitting the ground. Jolly rotten luck, old sport. This portion of the news is brought to you by IBM, now announcing the PC Junior, a proud addition to your family. Each PC Junior comes equipped with a word processing program, a monthly expense spreadsheet, and a recipe file. All the things you can do with an Underwood No. 5, except print. All for just $700. But why stop there? For $1,300, you can double the memories you'll make with a generous 120K portion of RAM. How much is that? Who cares? It's twice as much as the $700 model, so if you think about it, you're really saving $100. Add an Epson RX80 dot matrix printer for only $600, and you'll have all the functionality you need. Oh wait, you probably want to see all of this amazing shit, so tack on another $700 for the 12-inch 4-color CGA IBM 4863 monitor, and for only half the price of a brand new Dodge Omni, you can have a typewriter that is also a Pac-Man machine. IBM PC Junior. Like Charlie Chaplin says, I can't wait for this baby to turn 12 so I can take her to Mexico and marry her. Now back to the show. And stay in shape if you know what's good for you. Just in time for Valentine's Day. Teddies for your own special woman on her day. What better way to let her know it's her day by putting her in one of these, right fellows? It's all about you, dear. Wait, I thought it was the year of the rat. Those Chinese, they're so inscrutable. Oh, that's how they got away. I'm going to need to get a bigger notebook. The Archbishop of Newark, New Jersey, who apparently had nothing better to do, has stepped in to stop a local church from conducting baptisms on Cabbage Patch dolls. The ceremony, in which children were invited to bring their dolls for a simulated baptism, was cancelled by the Archbishop, who said, "This publicity stunt only makes a mockery of the sacrament of baptism. These dolls cannot consent to this ceremony. They don't understand what is happening, the commitment they are making, the promises. How could a parent do such a thing? Even an adoptive one?" Speaking of putting the kibosh on well-intentioned plans, it's time for another segment of the show that asks, "Can we go home already?"
Sit
left our far-out space nuts. The $75 million West Star 6 had vanished, its whereabouts more mysterious than those of the founder of the Hughes Aircraft Company that built it. Did it disintegrate? Did it explode? I'm not saying it was aliens, but was it aliens? Nope, it's just in the wrong orbit, intact, but like John Wilkes Booth's hands, useless. Western Union hasn't made this big of a boner since they refused to purchase the quadruplex telegraphy patent from Thomas Edison for $30,000 in 1874, only to have to buy it from Jay Gould for $5 million 4 years later. And here we have exclusive footage of Challenger astronaut Robert Stewart attempting to launch the $450,000 experimental balloon the crew were to use to practice rendezvous maneuvering on the next mission.
Oh! Quiet, you guys! Oh!
Ouch! What else could go wrong? Wait, they lost a second satellite? And they're still going to try the spacewalk. Don't they still have any of those space monkeys left? J. Fred Muggs must be looking for something to do besides autograph shows. Although I hear he's a real arsehole. Surprise, surprise, the spacewalk was a smashing success as Bruce McCandless and Robert Stewart became real-life Buck Rogerses, jutting about untethered in space in their astro-commute suits like they owned the place. Though, as with just about everything else associated with this mission, there were some unexpected developments, as shown by this exclusive footage. McCandless returned safely, though he is now being treated for a minor case of the boer worms. To make matters even worse, apparently they're just letting anybody into space these days, as 3 Soviet cosmonauts parked their trailer in orbit on Wednesday. Great, there goes the neighborhood. We'd better move before our property values go down. Well, this brings the total space population now up to 8, a record. Or possibly 9, on the offhand chance Laika is still alive. I can't even with this flight anymore. It's like the last day of a trip when all you want to do is go home. You spent the whole time on the way there thinking, I can't wait to get there, I can't wait to get there. But then when you get there, you find out it's cold. The lines to the bathroom are too long. I mean, let's face it, how many times can you see the same thing over and over and over, no matter how impressive? And you never really realized just how much everyone else smelled. And the food, oh, don't even get me started on Tang. And after a while, all you can think about is how comfortable your chair at home is compared to the chair on this godforsaken vehicle. And how you'd rather be there, with your feet up, watching Sanford and Son, and eating a bag of Pepitos and drinking some Coors Light. Well, at least there was some good news as the shuttle made a smooth landing at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, marking the first time the shuttle landed at the point of its departure. Thank God that flight is over. I have no doubt that with all its foul-ups, bleeps, and blunders, this will go down as the worst Challenger mission in history. Mayor of Chicago, Harold Washington, who was married as recently as 1950, just can't seem to quit former aide Clarence McLean, pictured here. The former pimp and back tax evader, who until late last year held a $69,000 a year position as his top, or perhaps bottom, advisor. McLean and his merkin emerged once again on Tuesday to deny a professional relationship with Washington, insisting the two are just friends, though those in the know maintain McLean remains the vein for those trained on gaining backdoor access to the mayor. From the knock-me-down-with-a-feather-boa department comes the news that Elton John is to wed a woman next Tuesday. There hasn't been a twist this unexpected since minute 47 of Psycho. When reached for comment, lyricist Bernie Taupin said, "I feel like everything I've ever written was a lie." Tonight on Jim'll Fix It, a 9-year-old boy with a yen for accountancy helps negotiate a £300 million deal. Gee, I wonder how he did that. You know, I always say, when life's lemons put their hands all over you, make lemonade. But the real crime here is how on earth does this man continue to gain employment? I just acquired a PAL Betamax we had converted to NTSC, and good God, how can people look at this face for 35 minutes? And are we so over the Brothers Gibb that one of them is reduced to appearing on this mandrel sauce of a program? Listen, from me to you, never trust a man named Robin. The Rockholm store is having their semi-annual 1900s sale this weekend in Arcola. You might want to lay off that 1900s cheese, though. And finally tonight, salt and pepper mustachioed first baseman Keith Hernandez has just signed a new contract with the New York Mets. $8.4 million over 5 years, which works out to, hold on, $1.68 million per year. What an outrage! He's already 30, and it doesn't even start until 1985. Why, I wouldn't even spit on him. On the other hand, maybe I could interest him in the contents of the trailer in the back of my parents' property the next time he swings by to drop off his child support payments in St. Louis. And with that, you now have my permission to look away.